Paper promises. The sleek glass elevator climbed 40 floors without a sound, much like the woman standing inside it. Elise Winters clutched her worn leather satchel against her cream blouse, wondering how she'd ended up here, about to meet one of the most powerful men in the country with a proposition she couldn't believe she was considering. "Mr. Blackwood will see you now," announced the immaculately dressed assistant when the elevator doors opened to Vertex Technologies' executive floor. Her smile was practiced, perfect, and completely devoid of warmth, much like everything else, in the minimalist space of steel and glass. Elise nodded, following the rhythmic click of the assistant's heels across the polished concrete floor. Each step brought her closer to a decision that would change everything. The desperation that had driven her here wrapped around her chest like a vice. The double doors to Dominic Blackwood's office swung open, revealing a panoramic view of the city skyline, and the man himself. Tall, imposingly elegant in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 6 months of her bookstore's rent. He didn't look up from the documents on his desk. "Miss Winters," he said, his voice low and disinterested. "I've allocated 15 minutes for this meeting." Elise straightened, her shoulders. "That should be sufficient, Mr. Blackwood." Now he looked up, one eyebrow arched slightly, the first indication that she'd surprised him. His eyes were a striking blue-gray, calculating as they assessed her from head to toe. "Your lawyer reviewed my proposal?" she asked, taking the seat across from him without waiting for an invitation. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Thoroughly. It's unusual, but mutually beneficial." Elise kept her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. "You need to project stability to secure your Japanese investors. I need financial compensation. A temporary marriage of convenience solves both problems." Dominic leaned back, steepling his fingers. "And why should I choose you, Miss Winters? There are agencies specializing in arrangements like these with women who—" His eyes flickered over her simple attire. "Better fit the profile of a billionaire's wife." "Because I have no interest in your world, Mr. Blackwood. No aspirations to be a socialite or to extend this arrangement beyond our contract. I run a small bookstore. I value my privacy. I won't sell our story to tabloids or develop inconvenient feelings." She placed a folder on his desk. "And I've already signed a non-disclosure agreement." Something shifted in his expression. Approval, perhaps. He reached for the folder. "And your requested compensation?" Elise named a figure that made her mouth dry just saying it out loud. Dominic didn't flinch. "That's considerable for playing dress up at cocktail parties." "It's considerable for surrendering a year of my life and my identity," she countered, "but negotiable if the terms change." He studied her for a long moment before pressing a button on his desk. "Patricia, have legal send up the marriage contract draft." He turned back to Elise. "I have conditions. Separate bedrooms. You'll need a complete wardrobe change. You'll take my name professionally. And if you breathe a word of this arrangement's true nature to anyone—" "I won't," she interrupted. "As I said, privacy matters to me too." The contract arrived with startling efficiency. Elise read each page carefully while Dominic watched her with growing curiosity. When she finally signed, she felt a weight both lifting and settling simultaneously. "We'll be married by a judge this Friday," he stated, signing his own name with a flourish. "My assistant will contact you with details." As Elise stood to leave, Dominic added, "One more thing, Miss Winters. Whatever your reasons for needing this money, I hope they're worth it." She met his gaze directly. "They are, Mr. Blackwood. Some things in life are beyond price." As the elevator descended, Elise finally allowed herself to exhale. In 3 days, she would become Mrs. Blackwood, a woman who existed only on paper, bound by signatures and clauses. She closed her eyes, thinking of the small specialized care facility across town and the faces that would light up when she told them they wouldn't have to move after all. Some promises, even those made on paper, were worth any sacrifice. Part 2. Cracks in the facade. 3 weeks into their arrangement, and Elise was still discovering new rules. Don't speak until spoken to during business dinners. Always touched Dominic's arm when laughing at his associates' jokes. Never, under any circumstances, mention his family. Tonight marked their first major public appearance, a technology innovation gala where Vertex would unveil its newest artificial intelligence platform. Elise stood before the mirror in her penthouse suite, separate from Dominic's per contract section 3.4, barely recognizing herself in the midnight blue gown that hugged her curves before cascading to the floor. "The car arrives in 10 minutes, Dominic's voice came from the doorway. He paused when she turned, something flashing across his features before his expression returned to its usual impassive state. "The necklace completes the look." He approached with a velvet box, revealing a diamond pendant that caught the light, in hypnotic patterns. As he moved behind her to fasten it, his fingers brushed against her neck, causing an involuntary shiver. "Cold?" he asked, his breath warm against her ear. "No," she answered honestly, meeting his eyes in the mirror. For a moment, neither moved. "The Nakamura investors will be watching us closely tonight," he said, stepping back abruptly. "They value family tradition. We need to appear madly in love," Elise suggested with a hint of irony. One corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "Let's aim for comfortably committed. Madly in love might strain credibility." The gala was a glittering spectacle of wealth and power. Elise played her part perfectly, smiling at the right moments, engaging in pleasant conversation, always maintaining subtle physical contact with Dominic. She was surprised to discover she actually enjoyed discussing literature with the wife of a tech developer who turned out to be a fellow book lover. "Your wife is charming, Blackwood," remarked Hiroshi Nakamura during dinner. "Quite different from the women you usually favor." Dominic's hand found hers under the table, squeezing slightly in warning. "Elise is unique in many ways." "And how did you meet?" "The announcement of your marriage was quite sudden." Before Dominic could answer, Elise laughed softly. "I spilled coffee on his laptop in my bookstore. He was furious until he realized I'd saved a first edition Hemingway from water damage in the process. He asked me to dinner to thank me, and..." She looked at Dominic with practiced adoration. "Some connections are just inevitable, aren't they?" Dominic's expression shifted subtly, surprise, followed by something warmer. "She's been surprising me ever since," he added, the scripted line, somehow sounding genuine. Later, as they moved among the crowd, Elise noticed Dominic's assistant Rebecca looking flustered as she approached. "Sir, the demonstration platform is showing error codes. The tech team can't resolve it, and you're on in 15 minutes. Dominic's jaw tightened. "Get Henderson up there now." "He's tried already. Something about the integration code." "Excuse me," Elise interjected. "But is it the new Vertex 7 system? The one with the adaptive learning matrix?" Both turned to her in surprise. "I used to help code at the university tech lab," she explained. "Just a hobby, but..." Dominic studied her for a long moment. "Show me," he finally said. 10 minutes later, Elise had identified the conflict in the system integration, allowing the demonstration to proceed flawlessly. Dominic delivered his presentation to thunderous applause, with the Nakamura group looking impressed. In the car ride home, silence stretched between them until Dominic finally spoke. "You never mentioned your programming background." Elise stared out the window at the city lights. "You never asked about my background at all." "Fair point." He loosened his tie. "The university tech lab? I was studying architectural design. Programming was just something I picked up." She turned to face him. "Not all of us had our lives planned out from birth, Mr. Blackwood." "Dominic," he corrected. "If we're privately adjusting our arrangement, you should use my first name." "Are we? Adjusting our arrangement?" His eyes met hers. "You went beyond contract obligations tonight." The Nakamura group was impressed not just with the technology, but with us. The word hung between them, oddly weighted. "I'm beginning to think there's more to you than meets the eye, Elise Winters." "Blackwood," she corrected with a small smile. "Legally, at least." Something changed after that night. Small things. Dominic seeking her opinion on design elements for a new project. Elise leaving books she thought he might enjoy on his desk. During public appearances, their performances became more convincing because they required less performance. But each night, they returned to their separate rooms, separated by a contract neither dared to question. Until the evening, Dominic returned early from a business trip and found Elise in the home office, hurriedly ending a phone call. The monthly payment from their arrangement had been transferred that morning, and her laptop screen showed a substantial outgoing transfer. "Who were you talking to?" he asked, his voice turning cold. "No one important," she replied, closing the laptop. "Really? Because Section 5.2 of our agreement requires disclosure of all significant financial transactions to prevent corporate espionage." Elise stood, anger flashing in her eyes. "This has nothing to do with your company." "Then what does it have to do with? Who's receiving that money, Elise?" "That's none of your business." His expression hardened. "Everything about you became my business when you signed that contract." "Your business," she said quietly, "not your life." "There's a difference, Dominic. One you've made perfectly clear." As she brushed past him, he caught her arm. "Is this all just an act? The woman who fits so perfectly at my side, is she even real?" Elise looked down at his hand on her arm, then back to his face. "I could ask you the same question. Is there anything real about the great Dominic Blackwood, or is everything just another business transaction?" She pulled away, leaving him standing, alone in the dimly lit office, staring at the closed laptop and feeling, for the first time in years, that he might have miscalculated badly. The unraveling thread. The charity gala for children's education should have been simple, another choreographed appearance in their carefully constructed charade. Instead, it became the night everything began to fall apart. Elise entered the grand ballroom of the Westbrook Hotel on Dominic's arm, acutely aware of the growing distance between them over the past 2 weeks. Since their confrontation in his office, their interactions had become purely transactional, reverting to the cold terms of their contract. "The Fosters are approaching," Dominic murmured, his hand settling at the small of her back. "He's considering investing in our medical technology division." Elise plastered on her practiced smile, though it felt brittle. Of course. As they mingled with Silicon Valley's elite, she noticed Dominic watching her with increasing intensity. His scrutiny made her nervous, causing her to knock over a champagne flute when Senator Hannigan asked about her background. "Clumsy tonight, darling?" Dominic commented, his tone light but eyes sharp. "Just tired," she replied, accepting a napkin from a server. "Perhaps because of your late-night activities?" he suggested quietly, guiding her away from the group with a possessive hand on her waist. To onlookers, they appeared like any couple sharing an intimate moment. "What are you talking about?" Elise whispered, maintaining her smile. "I had my security team review the penthouse access logs. You've been leaving the building at 2 a.m. twice a week since we married." His fingers tightened slightly. "Care to explain?" The betrayal hit Elise like a physical blow. "You're having me followed?" "I'm protecting my interests, something you agreed to in section." "Stop quoting the contract," she hissed. "If you wanted to know where I go, you could have asked. Would you have told me the truth?" The question hung between them, unanswered, as Jeffrey Nakamura approached with his wife. "Ah, the newlyweds," Jeffrey beamed. "Hiroshi can't stop talking about you both. He's convinced Vertex's future is secure with such a solid partnership at its helm." Mrs. Nakamura squeezed Elise's hand. "The foundation you mentioned for children with special needs, I looked into it. Such wonderful work they're doing with limited resources." Elise froze, feeling Dominic's attention sharpen beside her. "Foundation?" he asked, his tone deceptively casual. "The Sunfield Center," Mrs. Nakamura continued enthusiastically. "Elise was telling me about their innovative programs. We're considering a donation." "How generous," Dominic responded smoothly. "My wife is passionate about many charitable causes." When the Nakamuras moved on, Dominic's expression hardened. "The Sunfield Center. Is that where the money goes?" "Is That where you sneak off to in the middle of the night? This isn't the place, Elise whispered urgently. Then where is the place? Our home? Where you hide behind closed doors? Your mysterious outings that you refuse to explain? His voice remained low but had taken on a dangerous edge. I'm beginning to wonder if anything about you is genuine. That's rich coming from you, she retorted. What exactly is genuine about this arrangement? About you? I've never pretended to be anything other than what I am. And what's that? A man so obsessed with control he has to buy a wife and then spy on her? The muscle in his jaw twitched. At least my motives are transparent. What are you hiding, Elise? Who are you really working for? The accusation struck her like a slap. Working for? You think I'm what, some corporate spy? The thought has crossed my mind. Convenient, isn't it? The bookish, unassuming woman who just happens to have programming skills, who transfers large sums to untraceable accounts, who sneaks out at night to meet God knows who. Elise's hands trembled with anger and hurt. You know nothing about me. Precisely my point. A photographer approached asking for a photo of the city's newest power couple. Dominic's arm curved around her waist, pulling her against him with practiced ease. They smiled perfectly, the picture of marital harmony. What would your precious investors think? Elise whispered through her smile as the camera flashed. If they knew the great Dominic Blackwood can't even trust his own wife? You're not my wife, he responded coldly. You're an employee with an extremely generous compensation package who's not fulfilling the terms of her contract. As soon as the photographer moved away, Elise stepped back. I need some air. She made her way to the terrace, gripping the stone balustrade as she struggled to compose herself. The cool night air did little to calm the storm inside her. She'd known from the beginning this was just business, but somewhere along the way she'd forgotten to guard her heart against the man whose name she now carried. Mrs. Blackwood? She turned to find Harrison Wells, Dominic's chief competitor, watching her with concern. Are you all right? You seem upset. I'm fine, she assured him, wiping away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. Just needed a moment. Trouble. In paradise? Harrison moved closer. I was surprised when Dominic suddenly married. It seemed out of character. A warning bell sounded in Elise's mind. My husband is full of surprises. Indeed. Though perhaps not as surprising as your own. Background. Harrison smiled thinly. I find it interesting that a simple bookstore owner could capture the attention of Silicon Valley's most eligible bachelor. Love works in mysterious ways, she replied automatically. Love, Harrison repeated skeptically. Or is it something else? I wonder what Dominic would think if he knew about your connection to the Sunfield Center, about Oliver. Elise felt the blood drain from her face. How do you... I make it my business to know things, Mrs. Blackwood. Information is power. He handed her a business card. When you're ready to discuss a more advantageous arrangement, call me. Elise stared at the card in horror as Harrison walked away. She was so distracted she didn't notice Dominic until he spoke directly behind her. Making new friends, she whirled around, quickly hiding the card. It was nothing. His eyes narrowed. More secrets, Elise? Before she could respond, her phone rang, the special ringtone she'd assigned to Sunfield. Panic flooded her system as she checked the screen. I need to take this, she said urgently. Of course you do. Dominic's voice was ice. Don't let me stop you from conducting your business. As he turned to walk away, Elise made a split-second decision. Dominic, wait. But her plea was cut short by the sound of screeching tires from the street below, followed by a sickening crash and screams. Elise rushed to the balcony's edge, her heart stopping as she saw the familiar Sunfield Center van crumpled against a light pole. No, she whispered, already running toward the exit, leaving Dominic staring after her in confusion. By the time he reached the street, Elise was already at the scene, frantically talking to paramedics as they loaded someone onto a stretcher. When he approached, she was pale as a ghost, her elegant gown stained with blood. He was coming to get me, she said numbly when she saw Dominic. There was an emergency at the center. He was coming to get me, and now... She swayed dangerously, and Dominic caught her before she could fall. For the first time since their arrangement began, he held her not for show, not for cameras, but because something in her broken expression had reached past his suspicion to touch a part of him he'd thought long buried. "Tell me what's happening," he said quietly. "Tell me how to help." Elise looked up at him, her defenses finally crumbling. "It's Oliver," she whispered. "My brother." The truth beneath. The hospital waiting room smelled of antiseptic and fear. Elise sat motionless, still in her blood-stained gala gown, staring at the doors where they had taken Oliver. Dominic returned with 2 cups of coffee, setting one beside her. "Any news?" he asked, loosening his tie. She shook her head. "The doctors are still with him." Dominic studied her profile, the anxiety etched into every line of her face, so different from the composed woman who had signed his contract 4 months ago. "Tell me about him," he said quietly. Elise's fingers tightened around the paper cup. "Oliver is 23 but developmentally around 7. He has Williams syndrome. It causes cognitive delays but also makes him unusually friendly and empathetic." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "He trusts everyone, sees the good in everyone. The complete opposite of you." Dominic absorbed the slight. "And the Sunfield Center?" "It's a residential facility for adults with special needs. Oliver has lived there since our parents died 10 years ago." She finally turned to look at him. "That's where the money goes. That's where I go at night when he has anxiety attacks and can't sleep." The pieces were falling into place. Her desperate need for funds, the secrecy, the late-night disappearances. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it wasn't part of our arrangement," she answered simply. "You wanted a convenient prop for your business image. I needed money to keep Sunfield from closing due to budget cuts. Our contract didn't require personal histories. I accused you of corporate espionage. You did. I had you followed." "Yes." Dominic ran a hand through his hair, disheveled for the first time since she'd known him. "I'm not good at trust, Elise. I've noticed." A doctor emerged through the double doors, and Elise was on her feet instantly. "Dr. Fredericks, how is he?" The doctor's expression was grave. "Oliver is stable, but the head trauma is concerning. We've induced a coma to reduce brain swelling, but he'll recover?" The tremor in Elise's voice betrayed her fear. "The next 48 hours are critical. And I should warn you, even with the best outcome, his rehabilitation needs will be extensive. The Sunfield Center may not be equipped to handle his care once he's released." Elise's face crumpled. "I'll figure something out. Can I see him?" As Dr. Fredericks led them to the ICU, Dominic watched Elise transform. Her steps became more certain, her voice steadier, a woman assuming a mantle she'd carried for years. Oliver lay surrounded by machines, looking impossibly fragile. Elise immediately went to his side, taking his hand and speaking in soft, soothing tones. "Hey, Ollie, it's Elle. I'm right here." Dominic hung back, feeling like an intruder in this intimate moment. He'd never seen such tenderness, not in his own family, certainly not in his carefully curated business relationships. "He likes music," Elise explained, stroking Oliver's hair away from the bandages. "I usually sing to him when he's frightened." Without self-consciousness, she began to sing a gentle lullaby. The simple melody filled the sterile room, transforming it into something sacred. Dominic felt an unfamiliar tightness in his chest. When a nurse came to check Oliver's vitals, Elise stepped into the hallway where Dominic waited. "You should go home," she said. "This could be a long night." "I'll stay." She looked surprised. "There's no need. No investors to impress here." "I'm not here as your contract husband, Elise. I'm here as—" He paused, unsure how to define what he was feeling. She saved him from having to finish. "There's something you should know. Harrison Wells approached me at the gala. He knows about Oliver, about Sunfield. He implied he has information that could complicate things for us." Dominic's expression hardened. "Wells has been trying to undermine me for years." "What exactly did he say?" "He suggested our marriage wasn't what it seemed. Offered me a more advantageous arrangement. She met his gaze directly. I would never have taken it. I know, Dominic said, surprising them both with his certainty. Dawn was breaking when Dr. Fredericks found them still in the waiting room. Elise had finally succumbed to exhaustion, her head resting against Dominic's shoulder. Mr. Blackwood? A word? Dominic carefully extricated himself, leaving Elise sleeping. How is he? Showing positive signs, but his recovery will be challenging. The Sunfield Center has already called. They're not equipped for his rehabilitation needs. What would be required? Specialized care, physical therapy, cognitive rehabilitation. Private facilities exist, but they're expensive. Dominic nodded, decision already made. Prepare a comprehensive care plan. Cost is no object. Dr. Fredericks looked surprised. That's very generous for your brother-in-law. Family takes care of family, Dominic replied, the words feeling strangely right. He spent the morning making calls while Elise remained at Oliver's bedside. By afternoon, Oliver had shown enough improvement to be brought out of the coma. Dominic was returning with fresh coffee when he heard voices from Oliver's room. But who is he, Elle? Oliver's voice was weak, but curious. His name is Dominic. We're married? Married like Mom and Dad were? Oliver sounded confused. But you never said, it's complicated, Ollie. Does he make you happy? Dad said that's what matters most. The silence that followed made Dominic pause outside the door. I don't know, Elise finally answered. Sometimes I think he could if things were different. Different? How? If it were real. Dominic entered then, ending their conversation. Oliver's face lit up with innocent curiosity. Are you my brother now? Elle never told me I got a brother too. The simple question caught Dominic off guard. Yes, I suppose I am. Later that afternoon, Dominic excused himself to take a call. When he returned, he found Dr. Fredericks updating Elise on Oliver's treatment plan. The rehabilitation facility is excellent, but I have to be honest about the costs, the doctor was saying. Don't worry about the costs, Dominic interjected. It's been handled. Elise turned to him in confusion. What do you mean, handled? I've arranged for Oliver's care. The best specialists, private therapy, everything he needs. I can't accept that, she said immediately. It's not charity, Elise. He hesitated, then chose honesty. It's an apology. For doubting you, for the accusations, for not seeing what was right in front of me. Dr. Fredericks tactfully retreated, leaving them alone. There's something else you should know, Dominic continued. I've been looking into Sunfield's financial troubles. Their government funding was cut because the property needs significant upgrades to meet new safety codes. I know, she said tiredly. That's why they were closing. The money I've been sending has just been keeping them afloat. I had my foundation purchase the adjacent property. Construction begins next week on an expansion that will bring everything up to code and beyond. There will be room for Oliver when he's ready to return. Elise stared at him, speechless. Why would you do this? She finally asked. Dominic moved closer, taking her hands in his. Because I've spent my life building walls to keep people out, creating contracts instead of connections, and then you came along. This infuriating woman who hid the most important parts of herself, who challenged every assumption I've made. Dominic, let me finish, he said gently. When I saw you with Oliver, I finally understood. Everything. You've done, the secrecy, the late nights, the transferred funds, it was all for love. Pure, selfless love. Something I'm not sure I've ever experienced. Tears filled her eyes. He's all I have. Not anymore, Dominic said softly. If you'll let me, I'd like to be part of your family. Not because of a contract, not for appearances, but because somewhere between all the pretending I stopped acting. He reached up to brush away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. I think I've been falling in love with my wife. The contract, she began. To hell with the contract, he interrupted. Some things can't be contained in legal clauses, Elise. What I feel for you is one of them. Before she could respond, a nurse appeared at the door. Mrs. Blackwood? Oliver is asking for both of you. They found Oliver sitting up, his face brightening when they entered. Elle says you have a big company that makes computers think like people, he said to Dominic. Something like that. Dominic smiled, surprised by how naturally he took the chair beside Oliver's bed. Can they feel things? Like being happy or scared? Not yet. Dominic answered thoughtfully. That's much more complicated. Oliver nodded, solemnly. Feelings are tricky, like how Elle looks at you when you're not looking. That's a tricky feeling. Elise blushed furiously, but Dominic just laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that seemed to surprise even him. The trickiest feelings, he agreed, his eyes finding Elise's, are the ones that sneak up on you when you least expect them. Rewriting the contract. 3 months passed in a blur of hospital visits, rehabilitation sessions, and quiet evenings that no longer ended with retreating to separate rooms. The contract that had once dictated their every interaction now sat forgotten, in Dominic's safe, replaced by something neither of them had put into words. Elise stood at the window of the penthouse watching the sunset paint the city skyline in gold and crimson. Tonight was the Vertex Technologies annual gala, exactly 1 year since their arrangement had begun. 1 year since a desperate bookstore owner had proposed a business transaction to a cold-hearted billionaire. You look pensive, Dominic said, coming up behind her. His hand settled on her shoulders, a casual intimacy that still surprised her. Just thinking about how much has changed, she replied, leaning back against him. Oliver moves into the new Sunfield wing next week. Nervous about it? A little, but Dr. Frederick says he's ready, and Oliver can't stop talking about the music room you added to the plans. Dominic smiled against her hair. He made a compelling case for its therapeutic benefits. Is that what he told you? He just wants somewhere to practice his drums without me complaining about the noise. Their laughter mingled, comfortable and warm. These moments still felt like small miracles to Elise. Seeing Dominic relaxed, open, so different from the man who had coldly outlined their arrangement a year ago. We should get ready, she said reluctantly. The car will be here in an hour. Dominic didn't release her. Before we do, there's something I need to discuss with you. His serious tone made her turn in his arms. What is it? Our contract expires tonight at midnight. The reminder sent an unexpected pang through her chest. Oh, I hadn't realized. I did. He led her to the sofa, taking both her hands in his. I've been thinking about it for weeks. Elise's throat tightened. Despite everything that had happened, Oliver's accident, Dominic's transformation, the nights spent in each other's arms, they'd never officially renegotiated their arrangement. Had it all been temporary in his mind? Elise, he began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. When I agreed to your proposal a year ago, I thought I was making a simple business decision. I'd gotten where I am by viewing everything as a transaction. Relationships, partnerships, even marriage. I understand, she said quietly. We both entered this with clear expectations. Did we? He smiled slightly. I expected a convenient facade. Instead, I got a woman who challenged everything I thought I knew about myself, who showed me that the most valuable things in life can't be bought or contracted. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box, causing Elise's breath to catch. This isn't what you think, he said, opening it to reveal not a ring, but a key. At least not yet. A key to your bookstore. The original one you had to close when we married. He placed it in her palm. I bought the building. It's been renovated, updated, but kept exactly to your original vision. The architectural designs we found in your old notebooks. Elise stared at the key in disbelief. But why? I don't need. This isn't about need, he interrupted gently. It's about dreams. You sacrificed yours for Oliver, then put them aside again for our arrangement. I want you to have them back. Tears welled in her eyes. Dominic, I don't know what to say. There's more. He took a deep breath. The merger with Nakamura Group is complete. The company is stable. I've restructured the executive team to allow me more flexibility. Flexibility for what? For life. Real life, not the artificial one I've been hiding behind. His fingers tightened around hers. Our contract ends tonight, which means you're free to walk away with everything I promised you. The money, the bookstore, your independence. The thought of walking away from him created a physical ache in her chest. Is that what you want? What I want, he said, his voice low and fervent, is to tear up that contract and write a new one. Not as CEO and employee, not as convenient partners, but as Dominic and Elise, two people who found something real in the midst of pretense. From his jacket, he produced a folded document. What's this? She asked, taking it with trembling fingers. Open. It inside was a single page with elegant calligraphy. The undersigned parties hereby agree that all previous contractual obligations are null and void, replaced by the following terms. To choose each other freely, not from necessity, but from desire. 2. To build a home where truth prevails over pretense. 3. To consider Oliver family, without reservation or condition. 4. To support each other's dreams as fervently as our own. 5. To remember that the most valuable commitments cannot be contained. In legal clauses, this agreement has no expiration date. Beneath were 2 signature lines. It's not legally binding, Dominic said with a soft laugh. My lawyers would have a fit. But I find I care less about legal protection these days and more about... He paused, searching for the right word. Love? Elise suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, he agreed, meeting her eyes. Love. He reached into his pocket again, this time producing a small black velvet ring box. Which brings me to my actual question. Elise's heart hammered as he opened it to reveal a simple but stunning diamond set in platinum. This isn't in the contract, he said. This is just me, asking you to stay. Not as my fake wife, but as my real one. Not because you need something from me, but because I hope you want the same things I do. And what do you want, Dominic Blackwood? She asked, though she could see the answer in his eyes. A life that's messier and more complicated and infinitely more beautiful than anything I could have planned. He took the ring from its box. A family that includes a brother who beats me at chess despite my Stanford education and keeps asking when we're going to have a baby. A wife who sees past my walls and loves me anyway. He slid the ring onto her finger. A perfect fit. What do you say, Elise? Will you marry me? For real this time? Instead of answering, she pulled the elegant calligraphy document toward her and signed her name with a flourish, then handed him the pen. I believe in honoring my contracts, Mr. Blackwood, she said with a smile that contained all her love, especially ones without expiration dates. Dominic signed, then pulled her into his arms, sealing their new agreement with a kiss that held nothing back. The Vertex Technologies gala that night became the setting for an unexpected announcement. As Dominic took the stage, Elise watched from the front row, the new ring glinting on her finger. A year ago, he began, his voice carrying across the hushed ballroom. I stood on this stage and introduced you to my wife. What I didn't tell you was that our marriage began as a business arrangement. A murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd. I thought I was making a strategic decision for the company. Instead, I made the best mistake of my life. His eyes found Elise. Tonight, I'm proud to announce that Elise and I will be renewing our vows next month. Not for business, not for appearances, but because sometimes the most valuable contracts are the ones written by the heart. The room erupted in applause as Elise joined him on stage. As cameras flashed around them, capturing the moment for tomorrow's business pages, Dominic whispered in her ear, I never expected my fake wife would become the love of my life. And I never expected a cold-hearted CEO would become the man of my dreams, she whispered back. I guess we both broke the contract. The following month, under a canopy of flowers at the newly expanded Sunfield Center, Dominic and Elise exchanged vows again, this time with Oliver proudly serving as best man The residents of Sunfield performed the music, their enthusiastic if not always harmonious renditions filling the air with joy. As they spoke promises that came from their hearts rather than legal documents, Elise glanced at the front row where Rebecca, Dominic's formerly frosty assistant, now the devoted director of the Blackwood Foundation, dabbed at her eyes. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared. "Again," he added with a smile. At the reception, Oliver gave a speech that left not a dry eye in the house. "Ella always read me stories about love-changing people," he said with his characteristic directness. "I didn't understand until I saw how she changed Dominic from a grumpy businessman into my brother." Laughter rippled through the crowd as Dominic shook his head, smiling. "And I saw how he changed her too," Oliver continued. "She smiles more. She doesn't worry so much. She sings again." He raised his glass of sparkling cider. "To my sister and my brother. Thank you for showing me that the best stories are the ones that come true." Later, as they danced under the stars, Dominic held Elise close. "Happy?" he asked. "Beyond anything I could have imagined when I walked into your office that day," she admitted. "Though I'm still not sure how we explain to our future children that their parents' love story began with a business proposal." Dominic laughed, spinning her gently. "We'll tell them the truth, that sometimes the best contracts are the ones you never intended to keep." As the music played and stars twinkled above, Elise rested her head against her husband's chest, feeling his heartbeat against her cheek. Their journey had begun with paper promises, with signatures and clauses designed to keep emotions at bay. But in the end, it was the unwritten agreement between their hearts that had created something neither could have negotiated. A love powerful enough to transform them both. And that, Elise thought as Dominic's arms tightened around her, was a contract worth keeping for a lifetime.